Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is Indy Fanatics, your home for IndyCar content with weekly podcasts and feature videos. Welcome back to the channel and to another feature video. Last time out we did our mid-season review, so if you haven't already, check that one out. Don't forget, if there is a driver, team or topic you'd like us to look at in the future, comment below.
But today we get into something nice and controversial. We will be stirring up some heated discussions by asking, is IndyCar better than F1? Now, the keyboard warriors who have just seen the title, hold off. Your time will come. But first, let us go through some pros and cons of both series and see where this video leads you as we talk about these two great categories of single-seater motorsports.
Well, as we are Indy fanatics and we love bigging up IndyCar, let's start with the pros of the series. IndyCar is a series rich with history, with American open wheel racing starting in the early 1900s, but really came alive in 1911 when the first Indy 500 was held. Through this history, a strong sense of tradition has been grounded in the series and has helped it to form into the brilliant championship that it is today. The fans that have stuck through the sport through the years have been rewarded with some incredible races and talented drivers competing for the top honours. Arguably right now, the IndyCar grid is the most competitive it has ever been, with legends from the last couple of decades and Scott Dixon, Helio Castroneves and Will Power still competing, and the best American talent in racing also compete here, with the likes of Newgarden, Rossi and now Colton Herta rising through the ranks, all competing for race wins regularly. And then you have the young talent in the series which Colton is a part of, including Pato O'Ward, Alex Palou and Rinus VeeKay. Guys who could easily compete with the very best in any series, but are here in IndyCar fighting against the best the championship has to offer and looking to assert their place at the top for years to come.
Yes, the drivers and the history of the sport helped make it brilliant to watch, but another thing that helps this is the tracks they race at. Now, IndyCar for us has the most challenging calendar in top-level motorsport. Not only do you have to be adept at the challenge of road courses and narrow street circuits, you also have to be able to drive at over 200 miles per hour on the ovals for 200 laps or sometimes more depending on the race. Each track requires a unique set of skills to be able to be competitive and win the championship, and you need to be strong on all three. And the track that everyone knows of is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It is the largest motorsport facility in the world and is a huge event within the IndyCar series. Like we said earlier, it has been a part of the American open wheel racing since 1911, and over the years has grown in stature and popularity to be the greatest spectacle in racing. On Memorial Weekend every year, fans come together to hopefully witness something special, and the winner does not only claim a strong points total in the championship, they claim legendary status, as the winners are forever remembered for success at the Speedway. The last pro before we look at F1 is the cars. In IndyCar, they all have the same chassis made by Dallara. They have two engine manufacturers in Honda and Chevy who are pretty evenly matched, and race weekends are often defined by who can master the setup of the car for that particular race. Because of the spec parts within the series, it means that the on-track action tends to be very close, with battles all the way throughout the field, and means that anyone from any team has a chance of winning if they nail the setup and drive well on the weekend. This leads to an incredibly competitive championship, which makes every weekend difficult to predict the winner and has the drivers at the very front making the difference between winning and losing.
Now, as fantastic as the racing is in IndyCar, we now move on to F1. Technologically, F1's cars are superior and incredible feats of engineering, and this is one of F1's main assets, as we would describe it as an engineering and constructor-focused championship. How they have developed into the fastest race cars overall in the world is incredible, and although Indy cars may have the higher top speeds in the season because of the ovals, it is through the cornering and the advanced intricate downforce items, mainly the front and rear wings, that enable F1 cars to take far superior speeds through the corners. The cars are incredibly precise bits of machinery that need equal precision from their drivers, and the drivers are incredibly talented in F1 as well. Now, people will argue about pay drivers, and unfortunately with the way costs have escalated regulated in F1, they are a necessity to ensure some teams on the grid survive. But overall, with the likes of Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso, there is a perfect blend of young and old within the series, and the incredibly intricate detail and precision of driving an F1 car means that they are not only physically proficient at driving the car, but also mentally incredibly talented at processing all the information they need to.
Back to me and back to the tracks. F1's calendar goes all over the world, bringing racing to all continents on the globe. Well, apart from Africa, but that may change in the coming seasons. But it is this aspect as a world championship that makes it so fascinating. It is also a blend of new and old tracks. Now, people will have their opinions on this, and it is not the perfect blend, but it is still a very good one, with the likes of Spa and Interlagos being complemented with Bahrain and Portimao, and then the street circuits with the classic track of Monaco complemented by the modern speed of Baku. Each track has a unique set of characteristics that make it a challenge for teams and drivers to adapt to and build the best car to be competitive at the majority of races. One thing that does make F1 quite unique with the constructors is the political games that are played between them, making it a very expensive soap opera, with storylines between drivers and teams and team rivalries always going on. Appeals to the FIA on technical regulations and subtle jabs in the media between team principals all add up to the spectacle that is F1, and probably why it has risen to the stature it has, because of the battles off track can sometimes be as interesting as the battles on it.
But that's a quick summary of the pros of each series. Now let's look at where they fall short in some areas. Now with IndyCar it is difficult, as some of its cons are what makes it brilliant. An example of this is the cars. Now by having a lot of spec parts, it means, like we said in the pros, that the racing is really close and competitive on a regular basis, but there can be arguments that it takes away from the technical ingenuity that made the series brilliant in the past, with owners like Dan Gurney pushing boundaries and even driver mechanics like AJ Foyt becoming a thing of the past. The problem is that innovation costs money, and after the second split, IndyCar definitely took a big hit in that area. Another area is the calendar. Now this will be a mixed one, as the core and majority of American fans will be happy with how the calendar is pretty much based solely in America. But if we are talking about global growth of the series and allowing it to grow outside the States, the lack of racing outside the continent of North America hurts its attempts to do this. And even if it brought back races to the likes of Mexico and Brazil, this would be an improvement for the calendar to tap into the strong Latin fan base the series has. The virtual world is another area where IndyCar is absent, whether that be through video games or through a series like F1 has in Drive to Survive, to target and engage a new audience and next generation of fans, with making stars of the people who work and compete in the series. The video game is well overdue, but the TV series and growth with a young fan base is a challenging issue, and I don't think it is through a lack of trying on behalf of IndyCar. Other than these issues, the series actually right now is in a pretty great position, and under the leadership of Roger Penske, the series only looks to be growing from strength to strength.
Now, the cons of F1 are similar to IndyCar in terms of its positives, can also be seen as a negative. Starting off with the cars, as magnificent as they are as feats of mechanical engineering, the amount of downforce that has been on the cars in recent years has made racing very difficult, with the wings creating something called dirty air behind them, making it difficult for any car to follow closely, making overtaking more difficult, and arguably the racing product then suffers as it is less entertaining. The budget of the top teams, especially Mercedes and Ferrari, has been far superior to their rivals, as well as only with a change of regulations and the introduction of a budget cap has it brought Red Bull back into the mix this year. This means that the playing field has become not even, and F1's landscape fairly predictable in the turbo hybrid era. Though proactive changes have been made to tackle this, with the aforementioned budget cap and the downforce simplified with the new technical regulations introduced in 2022, which hopes to bring the field closer together and more competitive. Another issue would be the tracks. By going all around the world, it doesn't necessarily mean that the best tracks are on the calendar for F1. Some of the modern tracks, like Sochi and Abu Dhabi, have led to fairly poor races in terms of entertainment, because the rising cost of hosting an F1 race has priced some great tracks out of hosting an event. Unfortunately, these rising costs doesn't seem to be an issue that will be resolved soon. The tracks that have struggled to produce good racing have at least looked like they will be tackled, with Sochi being replaced by a new track in St. Petersburg and Abu Dhabi making some long overdue changes to the track layout. Financials is the main barrier in F1 though, as mentioned in the previous two issues, posing a problem. But also the cost to reach F1 as a driver now is astronomical. Motorsport has always been an expensive sport to be part of, but F1 has spiraled out of control in this aspect. The cost of the junior series is now almost impossible to navigate through without either a huge sponsor or being part of an academy, which still also requires sponsorship. Getting to events for fans is almost the cost of a small holiday for the family, and around the world is no longer on free-to-air TV and is behind a paywall that requires a financial commitment from the fans who follow the sport. I'm not sure how F1 tackle this or whether they can. F1 is at the forefront of innovation, and that comes at a price. A price that has to be paid through all levels of the sport.
Ooh, doom and gloom. But now we move into the part of the video where we will draw some direct comparisons between the two series. Let's start off with the cost for fans to attend a race, and let's look at Mid-Ohio and Austria. If you would like a weekend general admission ticket to go to Mid-Ohio, it's going to set you back $85. For Austria, it's going to cost you $123, so it's around a similar sort of price for the average fan to get in. If we were to compare access to the paddock though, there is a huge difference. IndyCar offers a grandstand ticket and paddock pass for a combined cost of $190. In F1, there is a paddock club, and this is hugely more exclusive and expensive. As the tickets were sold out, I couldn't find out for Austria, but at Hungary, one of the cheaper races to attend on the calendar, it's going to set you back $5,657. That is a mad difference between the two.
Now let's compare the engines. The Chevy and Honda engines are estimated to produce around 550 to 700 horsepower. In comparison, in F1, Mercedes with the long dominant engine has an estimated horsepower in excess of 1,000. So a big difference between the two there. The tyre providers in the series are different as well, with Firestone supplying IndyCar with two tyre compounds for road and street courses, with the primary blacks and the alternative sticker red tyres with just the one set on ovals. Pirelli has been F1's provider for over a decade now and provided three tyre compounds for the races: the red softs, the yellow mediums and the white hards, and they have 5 different compounds of the tyres that they change depending on the circuit. Both series have wet tyres, though IndyCar just has one compound of wet tyre, where F1 have green intermediates and blue full wets. IndyCar actually has the higher top speeds, but that is mainly due to on the ovals, the downforce pretty much all being stripped away, but top speeds range between 378 and 386 kilometers per hour, where F1 at Monza has only reached 360 kilometers per hour.
Right. Now let's look at the respective costs to enter both series. So for F1, just for the privilege of being part of the championship, it has a descending cost structure where the highest placed team pays the most and lowest pays the least. For Mercedes to enter, after winning the 2019 championship, it cost them $5,490,812. Now with IndyCar, as you don't have to enter the full season, it was hard to find an entry fee, but the total cost for the season for a top team was $10 million, and for a lower team was $3 million. That's right, less than it cost Mercedes to enter F1 in 2020, let alone before the car build. So F1 is bringing in a budget cap, which is around $150 million, that will descend into $130 million over the next couple of seasons, but still extortionately more than IndyCar's top teams. But the reason it was bought in was for situations like 2019, where it was believed that Mercedes' budget on the car was a whopping $484 million. Insane!
That is pretty crazy. Now let's get on to a nice controversial one, the drivers. The drivers in both series, we are going to say it is pretty even. Now a lot of people think F1, the best single-seater series in the world, has the best drivers in the world. And for the most of the series' existence, we'd probably agree. But right now, with the rising costs of F1, it doesn't necessarily mean the best drivers can afford to get there. This, combined with the fact that IndyCar has built the strongest depth in talent it has had in years in the series, means this comparison isn't a foregone conclusion. Both have young talented drivers pushing for the future in Pato, Renus, Colton and Palou for Team Indy, and Lando, Max, Charles and Pierre for Team F1. Both series have an exciting future with more talent to join the ranks. But let's look at the top guys in both series. Scott Dixon, 6-time champion and Indy 500 winner in IndyCar, and Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion in F1. Scott won his first championship in 2003, and a bit like Lewis, has won a race in every season. Well, actually, technically he didn't in 2002 when he was in car, but for 19 consecutive seasons in IndyCar, he has won a race, which is the all-time record. He has also won a championship in 3 different decades, and just like Lewis, even though he's older now, shows no signs of stopping competing at the top anytime soon. Scott has won everything there is to win in IndyCar and is a legend. Lewis, the records speak for himself. Equal best rookie season ever, world championship in his second year, dominance with Mercedes in race wins and pole positions, joint most world championships of all time. He is undoubtedly one of the greatest the sport has ever seen. These two men's achievements are superb, and to have that caliber of driver in each series is a big plus. It is incredibly challenging in both to be competitive, and every position is hard fought.
We will round this video off now, as there are endless comparisons you could do and probably will do in the comments, and we shall look forward to reading those. But today was all about highlighting the positives in both series. Yes, they both have flaws, but as a motorsport fan and in particular single-seater fan, there is nothing better out there than these two. Is IndyCar better than F1? Well, it depends what you want from a series. If you're a pure racing fan and you want your drivers to make the difference, then undoubtedly the closeness of IndyCar probably appeals to you more, as the field is so competitive and every driver, no matter what team they are in, has a chance to compete for race wins on their day. But if you love the engineering side and teams building their own cars and looking for innovation to build the best and fastest race cars, then F1 is the series for you, as it is superior to IndyCar in this aspect. Strategy and pit stops are intriguing in both. The speed of F1 pit stops are truly incredible, and the added variable of refueling in IndyCar makes for interesting multi-stop races. The point of today's video wasn't to knock one down against the other really, it was more to elevate both series, and we feel IndyCar is underappreciated outside the US and maybe even within some quarters of America. If you're a racing fan, there is plenty to love about both series, so if you watch one but not the other, we highly recommend being a fan of both, though we take no responsibility for family arguments about watching motorsport all day. We hope you've enjoyed today's video, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on both F1 and IndyCar in the comments below. But if they're new around here or haven't done so already, Stephen, what can they do?
They can like, subscribe and ding that bell.
Ding it! So for now, you Indy fans, keep racing!